The CIA once wiped a woman's mind clean. She woke up thinking she was 3 years old. She came in for therapy. She left without language. And that was just one of them. In 1977, they admitted it. Mind control wasn't a theory, it was procedure. They said it ended, but the goal was never to stop. It was to evolve. They called it progress. One subject was a child. She stopped speaking. When asked her name, she said, "I don't have one." These weren't prisoners, not traitors, not spies, just people like you. She left the hospital smiling. But when they said her name, she tilted her head, like she was waiting to find out who they meant. And just for a second, you wonder if you'd answer to your own name if they took everything else first. Your screen watches your face, measures your pupils, reads your pulse through your camera. They don't need to break your mind. They just wait for you to open it. MK Ultra didn't end. It changed shape, from needles and wires to platforms and playlists. Program active. Most of what we know comes from the files they couldn't destroy in time. But what if the ones they kept were meant for us? In 1957, a man seeking relief from facial pain was admitted to a Montreal hospital. Without his consent, he was subjected to sleep therapy, induced comas, insulin injections, and relentless audio loops played under his pillow. He entered the hospital for treatment. He left a different person. Decades later, his daughter, Julie Tanny, leads a lawsuit against the institutions responsible, seeking justice for the irreversible damage inflicted upon her family. A government witness later admitted, there were other sub-projects even Congress never saw. One of them may still be active, and it doesn't need your body, just your attention. One sub-project vanished mid-trial. The lead scientist disappeared. His family was told he drowned. The CIA never filed a report, because what survived doesn't just describe experiments, it describes a blueprint for how to manipulate perception at scale. Control wasn't the goal, believability was. And the test subjects weren't always in the room, sometimes they were watching. A memo from 1962 called it a repeatable obedience protocol. Not a theory, not a test, a tool they could deploy. So if you never noticed it happening, maybe that means it worked. In leaked tests, users were shown fake headlines, then made to forget they'd seen them. They remembered the emotion, but not the lie. In one hospital, they played the same message over 300,000 times to the same person while they were unconscious. The goal wasn't memory erasure. It was identity collapse, to unmake the self, so it could be rebuilt from obedience. Sub-Project 54 explored whether a blast of sound could erase memory without leaving a mark. But what if the mark isn't on the brain? What if it's in how you speak or how you don't? One man forgot how to read, accept government warnings. Another could only speak in slogans from ads. They didn't erase memory. They replaced it with programming. You've been trained too. Just slower, softer, with consent boxes. He said he remembered screaming, but not why. He remembered doctors smiling, but not what they took. The files say they didn't consent, but one document showed they did. The signature was real. The sedation just came first. Years later, one of the lead researchers gave a public lecture. He said they weren't victims, they were prototypes. The crowd applauded. He went on to design algorithms for military simulations, then helped build early behavioral tracking for consumer tech. You've seen his work. You just didn't know his name. Not all experiments used drugs. Some used repetition. Others used silence as a scalpel. One subject was locked in a white room. No clocks, no voices, no sense of time. The lights never dimmed. He tried to count meals until the tray stopped coming. Then one day he stood up and asked the mirror who was staring back, "Have you ever blinked at your reflection and not recognized the look in your eyes?" Subjects in isolation reported identical hallucinations. A man of static, always watching. He didn't speak, just stared. One subject whispered, "He said I was safe," but no one ever heard a voice. They stared at noise until it felt like meaning. When the static finally stopped, they screamed for it to come back. In a 1977 hearing, when asked if the CIA ever obtained consent, the agency's attorney replied, "Not in the sense you mean." Then he laughed. One patient was retaught her name with flashcards, twice a day for 6 months. They didn't stop when she got it wrong. One woman froze mid-sentence, eyes open, breathing normal, but no one was home. When the money dried up, the scientists left, but the subjects stayed in those rooms, in their minds, alone with whatever was left of them. They linked words to pain. Subjects winced at mother. One cried every time they heard their own name. They mapped the nervous system like software. If they triggered shame the right way, you'd stop asking questions on your own. It wasn't about beliefs. It was about reflexes, reactions, conditioned compliance, masquerading as choice. They found children could be rewired before memory formed, not through fear, through rhythm. They learned your brain doesn't need truth, just rhythm. Scroll, swipe, tap, repeat it long enough and your brain stops asking why. It just calls it normal, and you forget it wasn't always there. The reflex becomes belief, and by the time you notice the loop, it already owns your next move. The phrase hasn't changed in 60 years, but now it's wrapped in likes, and you choose it. MK Ultra didn't die, it digitized, and the test group never stopped growing. There were no trials, no reckoning, no apology, just silence and rebranding. In 2018, survivors of CIA-backed mind control experiments sued the Canadian government, and the government admitted it happened, but still fought to avoid blame. The names changed. The funding didn't. The methods adapted. The mission stayed the same. They renamed it engagement science. Focus groups became data farms, and the electrodes were replaced with emojis. You still think your feed reflects you, but it doesn't. It shapes you, and then shows you what you've become, as if it were always there. They don't need to erase your mind. They just bury it under noise, distraction, personalization. You still think you're choosing, but they've already mapped the outcome. And if you've ever felt your thoughts echo back at you, you're not imagining it. The test environment never shut down. They just stopped calling it that. Because once you believe you're free, you don't look for the walls. They realized they didn't need to hide the experiment, only the premise, that there was one at all. But some still feel it, that flicker, like something's watching, like the test never ended for them. The system asks for your face, your fingerprint, your voice. You think it's for access, but what if it's for calibration? Your voice, your rhythm, your patterns, not to serve you, but to model you, to write your next response. And if this story unsettled you, maybe it's not a story. Maybe it's your phase 1.